Afternoon, everyone. Welcome aboard. It's the Two Davies on the 5th of the 1st, 2026, first one of the year. I'm sure as the year progresses, the other David will be joining us again. But we'll just need to wait until he's ready. I have spoken to him, so you know he wishes you all a very happy new year, as do I. And he says he'll see you all later in the year. Okay. So, bit chilly. We really got above zero here today, and it's 4 in the afternoon. We're back down to -2, and that brings us to the very first subject of today, and that is a weather warning for viewers in the northeast and the northwest. And the warning is simple: don't drive if you don't have to. Don't go out if you don't have to. It is cold. It is icy. And in the northeast and in the Highlands, there's a shitload of snow. And I mean a shitload. At Tom and Tool, there was 50 centimetres lying. Unbelievable. If you live here in North Lanarkshire, there's less than a centimetre lying. We've only had a couple of small flurries. As I say, I know that we have viewers in Aberdeenshire, Fraserburgh, Moray and Inverness Shire. And I've got colleagues who will be travelling up and doing that A9 and all around the Highlands at this point in time, whether it be the Western or Central or the Northeast. So, to say, if you don't have to get in the road on one of the big rigs in this weather because they have to be in the road, then stay off the road. There's also a number of schools and transport routes closed because of the weather, folks. So if you're travelling by bus or train, I would definitely check before you set out on your journey. But if you don't have to travel, then don't. Essential travel only in these areas. Now, there's been an extended weather warning for the northeast, the central and western Highlands, extended until about 5 o'clock tomorrow night. And areas that are already buried deep in snow are expected to get another 5 to 10 centimetres tonight. Now, the gritters are out doing what the gritters do. And I've been having a look around Scotland. Now, these things used to be run by the local authorities. But it appears a lot of it's been subbied out now. With Bear Scotland and Amy covering the trunk road networks. I don't know if the councils are still covering the rest or whether that's been subbied out as well. But that sort of stuff should not be subbied out. That should be in the hands of local and central government, which we will be talking about a wee bit later. As you know, since the other Davies went off, I've introduced a wee section called Political Education. And today we'll be covering 365 days of democratic participation. Because democracy doesn't stop when you leave the ballot box. Okay, but the weather warning, folks, that's especially for viewers in the northeast, the central Highlands, and the western Highlands. Apparently, it's fucking outrageous where you guys are. Desiree, wrap up warm. Anybody up there in Aberdeen, Aberdeenshire, Moray, Angus, and of course the other side into the Western Highlands and the islands, wrap up warm. If you're planning to fly to Shelton or Orkney, no happening. If you're planning on flying out to Aberdeen, check at 5 o'clock because so far everything's been suspended today. So conditions are bad in the north of Scotland. So if you don't have to travel, don't. All right. Now, even the railways got their ploughs out to try to keep the Inverness Aberdeen line open. And there are reports of gritters and ploughs nowhere in any areas and villages cut off at this point in time. Fortunately, it's not my village. But as I say, if you're in the northeast, the Central Highlands, the Western Highlands, be very, very careful. Conditions are really, really difficult. If you don't need to travel, don't. Okay. Right, let's see who's in. Hi, Ellie. Hi, Robert the Bruce. Chris Fisher. Desiree, I hope you get a big jumper on the day, Desiree. Apparently it's bloody cold where you are. You have 4 or 5 inches up there in Elgin, have you? Ah, well, that's Maury. No. Aye, Happy New Year, everyone. The thunder snow. Wow, thunder snow can be quite fucking mental. That was in Orkney, and that is a parasitic Jaeger. Ginger Giraffes are there in America. Hi, Gingers. John Baxter's in. Stephen Nichols in. James Conley's in. Wake up and smell the rosemaries, and hi, Rosie. Hi, Chris. Hi, Stephen. Alan. City Flyer, welcome. How are you? Aberdeen's bad as that, City Flyer. Aye, I've been telling Peter he's the same. So I was speaking to a friend of mine and Peter Heed earlier. In fact, just after I spoke to David, and folks, the plan was to go out here and get to the bank right after the show, but I spoke to David and then various other phone calls. By the time I looked up, it was time to pick the wife up for work. And then, of course, I've got the show to prepare. So I'll just need to go to the bank in the morning after the show. So to the baby banks who are waiting to receive funds, they'll be with you in the morning. I apologise for today. Sometimes life just intrudes, and me, like everybody else, I've got a busy life. Okay. I'm Margaret Noakes. Right, next up. Today and over the past few days, party leaders in Scotland have been setting out their stalls for the 2026 election in May. Okay. Now, John Swinney, he says an SNP majority and there will be a referendum. There has been a president set, so there is something to be said for that. And Douglas Alexander, the Scottish Secretary, has also more or less backed that up. Oh, Hugh's showed up. Hi, Hugh. And Anna Sarwar, he's got nothing to offer, so he says, don't underestimate my party. Don't underestimate my party, whilst on there saying Labour for change. Well, we had that for fucking Starmer, and there's been no fucking change. In fact, if anything, the state has become more and more authoritarian under Starmer. Who's this? You've watched videos about the UK Supreme Court judgment and done an engine search, and it says the judgment says there is no way out of this union. That's not what the judgment says at all, Colin. So obviously you haven't read the bloody thing properly. In fact, the final statement for the judge who was summarising it was, there is a democratic route out of this union. And there is. It's called the Westminster election. So this idea that there's no route out of this union, wow. Somebody's on drugs. Anyway, so Sarwar says don't underestimate his party, but offers fuck all else. Russell Finlay berates the SNP and the Westminster government on tax increases while also offering nothing. The Conservative and Unionist Party are done. What did Reform UK have to say on setting out their stall? Nothing. They haven't. That's interesting in itself. That is interesting in itself. They're not announcing a policy portfolio as yet for the Scottish Parliament, which is very interesting because, according to the polling, they're going to be the second biggest party in the Parliament. The Greens have reaffirmed their commitment to independence and have been boasting about past achievements while in coalition with the SNP. And in these boasts, they talk about free bus travel for children. Fair one, it was their idea. Scrapping the peak rail fares. Well, it didn't happen till after the end of the coalition, but fair one, they pushed for it. And it's a good idea. Now, of course, there's a pilot plan coming up in Glasgow to make public transport free, which was also a Green policy. So I guess they've got a bit of blowing their trumpet to be able to do. They also participated in increasing the amount of children who get free meals at school here in Scotland. So, the Greens and the SNP coalition actually achieved quite a lot. But this recommitting themselves to independence, well, if the SNP comes short of the 65 that's needed for a majority, and they're on track for between 59 and 62, according to the polling data. And the Greens actually have overtaken Labour, the Labour Party, into third place in the latest what do they call them again? Find Out Now poll commissioned by the National. So, believe it or not, the Greens have overtaken the Labour Party, in which case they're on track for 12 to 15 to 18 MSPs. If they're that committed to independence, are they going to send the necessary 2 or 3 across the flare to ensure that there's that SNP majority? That's a watching brief. If Ross Greer watches us, or the co-leader watches us, think about it and have a discussion about it in your party. They wouldn't have to stay on the SNP side of the floor for very long, just long enough to secure that referendum out of Westminster, and then they could drift on back. So it is something that needs to be thought about. Now, what about the Lib Dems? Well, to be fair, everybody ignored them as usual. So even though Alex Cole-Hamilton has set out his policy portfolio, none of the news outlets have picked it up. None. I have no doubt that the local rags where these 4 MSPs are will have picked it up. But the national newspapers, they are absolutely not interested in anything the Liberal Democrats have got to say. And the Liberal Democrats get no airtime, even less than the Greens, who get very little airtime here in Scotland. They're just sort of like that ignored party. The Alpha Party? Well, who cares? They're not even fucking polling. Who really cares? And they're in that much turmoil and nobody's fucking listening, to be fair. They're all talking about going to court with each other and things like that. But there was good news for the Greens, of course. Their membership in Scotland swollen to as big as the Labour membership here in Scotland, which isn't big. We're only talking about 9,000-10,000 members. But that's how far back Labour have receded here in Scotland. And I don't know if you've noticed it, folks, but if you click on any YouTube video here in Scotland, you'll get Anna Sarwar come up telling us how much people need change. And nobody can wait until the skip button comes up about 3 seconds into what he's saying. But I say the parties have laid out their stalls. The press went with SNP and Labour because that's allegedly the battle here. Truth is, of course, it's SNP and Reform here now, which is fucking scary. That is scary. The good news is Labour have sunk so low in the latest Find Out Now poll commissioned by the National that the Greens have overtaken them. You would never believe that, man. Just so hard to believe how far the Labour Party have fallen. Keir Hardie would be spinning in his grave. So he would be spinning in his grave. Right, moving on. Labour MSP here in Scotland, Pam Duncan Glancy, to stand down at next election to allow her to maintain her friendship with sex offender Sean Morton. Now, what makes me say that she's standing down and is leaving politics to maintain that friendship? Well, because she has. Simple as that. And there's no other reason for her to stand down. None. She entered the Parliament in the last election. And as far as I can see, she's been quite a decent MSP. This one connection, which should have been severed because of the offences that Sean Morton had been convicted of, indecent pictures of children and things like that, she hasn't severed it. She hasn't severed it at all. So she's stepping down for public life to maintain a friendship with a sex offender. Don't know the guy. Don't know if he's mended the error of his ways. But I dare say everybody needs a bit of support. Will it be a loss? No. No, it won't be a loss. Why won't it be a loss? Because of the team she was playing for. Simple as that, with the footballification of politics. You know, but that's not the only problem that the Labour Party here in Scotland are facing. That Find Out Now poll that I was talking about, the latest poll in the National, also says that 76% of Scots are now very much aware that the Labour Party are nothing more than a branch office of Westminster. Now, Maesties have known that for a long time, but the National poll sort of confirms it. And of course, the fact that the only thing that Sarwar had to say as he was laying his stall out this weekend for the 2026 election was Labour for Change says it all. It's narrow, deliberately. He may well have learned to keep his gob shut on the big issues because it's a branch office. And we've seen what happened at the Westminster election. Sarwar would make promises, Starmer would slap him across the puss and say, no, we're not doing that. And that's exactly what happened. So, the reason why Sarwar's offered nothing to the people, except for a 3-word slogan, Labour for Change, is because he has no power to offer the people of Scotland anything. And even if he became the First Minister, he would have no power to offer the people of Scotland anything. Or to make any meaningful changes in Scotland. In fact, you probably see Sarwar and the Labour Party roll back in all the social advantages we've had since the inception of the Scottish Parliament. You would see the privatisation of more and more of our NHS. You would see the reintroduction of prescription fees. You would see the progressive tax system scrapped. You would see university tuition fees introduced. Because they're unions. And unions don't believe in diversion from their imperial masters. So they will want to realign us in all aspects of life with their imperial masters in Westminster. Simple as that. No point kidding on about it. Them's the facts, kiddies. Them's the facts. To quote Labour peer wee George Pishy Pants, the SNP have made public services manifestly better here in Scotland. Is that a bad thing, George? No, but they did it deliberately. No, they just did their fucking job. They put the people first, which is the primary duty of government, the welfare of the people. The SNP have remembered that mantra and they have made it happen. Okay, so things are not going well for Labour here in Scotland, and as we've seen for the small newspapers, Starmer's getting it in the neck for his silence on the USA stomping across the world like a fucking bully. You know, and of course he's wanting to get closer aligned to the EU, but we'll get there. All right. Right. Next up, a good news story. And I wonder how Sarwar and his fucking lackeys are going to spin this one. Over the month of December, including the Christmas and New Year period, A&E waiting times in Scotland went down 5%. So you could say A&E productivity went up 5%. Starting to get back to where it should. Well, not getting back to where it should be, but it's getting better considering we're in the middle of a flu epidemic. And since COVID, respiratory problems have been rife right across Scotland. And with this cold, wet atmosphere that we live in, that seems to suit these sort of viruses. So it's a good news story. It's a really good news story that even through which generally one of the busiest periods for A&E, Christmas, New Year, people drink to excess, all sorts of things. Waiting times have went down. 64% is no great, but it's better. It's gone in the right direction. It has been month on month. We've not hit the coldest months yet. That'll be probably February, March this year because the winter came late. So we'll see how things go going forward. But to be fair, as a whole, since Neil Gray became the Health Secretary, things have been slowly but surely progressing and getting better, and the recovery is happening. It's slow, but the Scottish Government are going to do it the right way. They're investing in the health service, heavily investing in the health service. The health service takes up a good 40 to 50% of the Scottish budget. It's a massive part of the Scottish budget. But the Scottish Government know the key elements to having a successful economy. Healthy, happy, well-educated, then you're going to have a healthy economy. And that's the mantra of this SNP government. Keep the people healthy, keep them happy, and ensure that they get the education they need. So a lot of other things go with that, like ensuring they keep their head above the water and they're able to feed each other. But that's important. It's very important that our politicians understand the ingredients required to have a healthy economy as a healthy, well-educated, happy, productive population and an attractive place to come and do business. Scotland ticks all the boxes, them all. And that's why our economy is doing much better than our UK, with the exception of Northern Ireland, which has access to the European market, of course, which is an advantage. Now, you might have noticed, folks, that since the other Davies disappeared, I've added a wee section on political education, if you like, looking at things that we should all be doing, including myself, to participate in our democracies all the bloody time. You know, it's very important that we all take time out to look around us, understand how the system works, and if need be, know how to intervene and to remain active in your democracy 365 days a year. So in this section, we're going to cover how do I participate in my local democracy 365 days a year. And then we'll move on to how do I participate in my regional democracy 365 days a year. Now, why do I talk about local and regional democracy? When I talk about local democracies, I'm talking about all the local authorities within Scotland. Them all. When I talk about regional democracy, it sticks in my fucking throat. And there's a reason for that. And that is because Scotland is a devolved region of the Union. So it's no national democracy that we have. It's a regional democracy and a local democracy. And it's very, very important to understand that. Until we're independent, it's limited a regional democracy for our parliament, and of course local democracy for the local authorities that come under that parliament. So that's the levels. You've got Westminster, then you've got the devolved regions, and then you've got the local authorities within those devolved regions. And it's the same right across these islands. So it is. So first up, and I'll put it up, how to participate in your local democracy 375 days a year. I'm probably going to have to change the view here for these folks. No, that's fine. Anyway, back we go. You can participate in local democracy 365 days a year by staying informed, engaging with your representatives and community, and becoming directly involved in local governance and civil action. Participation goes far beyond just voting in elections and is an ongoing process of civic engagement. Now, you've heard me say this before, folks. It is. Now, stay informed. That's very important. And so follow local news, read local newspapers and town newsletters, watch local news on TV, and follow community leaders. The local news and TV thing, I'm not that sure about it. The follow local community leaders, well, you need to be watching local TV to be able to follow them. And government departments and social media to stay current on local issues. Research local government structures. Give you something today. Learn about key issues. Educate yourself on the topics that affect your community, whether that be potholes, whether that be the local school, whether that be whether they're going to scrap the lollipop woman at the end of your street. These things are important, whether that be how your refuge is collected. I've said this before, local authorities is the first level of government that has an impact on our lives. Right, now engage with your local representatives and the community. Well, that's very easy to do. Your local councillors, like your MSPs and your MPs, will have surgeries. And the other way to access these people is if you're a member of a political party, because any councillor, MSP, MP for your area will be attending if they're a member of that party. Okay, so get involved in your local party branch. Unfortunately, I work evenings at the moment. That's difficult for me. It's a good way of meeting your local representatives. But all your local representatives have surgeries. And they will be posted within your community. So if you've got issues within your community, you can find your local representative and you can go and see them. All right. Now, obviously, contact your representatives, raise petitions, get involved in petitions, and you can even do it online at places like change.org and things like that. You participate in public consultations. Now, believe it or not, folks, councils do these things as well. You will find any consultation on any subject which is within the local authorities' powers on your local authority's website. All right. Now, the other thing is you can join organisations, community forums, attend community council meetings that are open to the public, and of course, other meetings which are conducted through your ward and through your local area. But as I say, there's lots of ways to stay involved all the time. Get directly involved. Volunteer for local causes, organisations. Join a local board or commission. Volunteer for a local campaign. You maybe want your school updated. And of course, there's always the ultimate, you can run for public office. You can participate in unique initiatives run by your council as well. And you can also get involved in the budgetary decisions. A lot of this stuff is put out to consultation. And we've seen it here a couple of years ago in North Lanarkshire, where they were going to shut a lot of the leisure facilities, and the local community said, no, you're no. And they reversed that decision. All right, so it's important to get involved, especially at our age when we have a wee bit more time. All right. So that's how to participate in your local democracy. Now, is it any different for your regional democracy? Well, let's take a look, shall we? We'll get rid of the local democracy and we'll bring up how to participate in your regional democracy. In our case, we're talking about our country, believe it or not. Right, stay informed and monitor decisions, meaning look at the laws that are being passed by your local regional government. All right. Keep in tap with these things. Follow official channels. In other words, look at who's in government, look at their websites, follow your local representatives because they will all have media outlets as well. Attend and stream meetings. If you're going along to a meeting, stream it. Just tell them you want to stream it and stream it. Unless it's on a personal matter, of course, then don't be fucking daft. Right, review meeting minutes and agendas. This stuff is all published by the government, meeting minutes and agendas. You know, you don't have to attend live. All this stuff is a matter of public record. You can get it within 24 hours of committee meetings or whatever. You can get into it. You can find the subjects within government that you're interested in and get engaged with it. Now, once again, engaging with elected representatives. Go to their surgeries. And if you remember a political party, you'll get access to that political party's elected members at your branch meeting. But it's very important to get to know your local representatives and engage with them when you need to or when you can. Well, make your local representative aware, your MSP, your councillor, aware of who you are. Let them know that you have an active interest in what it is the Scottish Parliament is doing. And of course, you've all heard me talk about this before, participate in public consultations and, of course, public petitions. And if you can, get involved in the boards. Respond to consultations. Go to the government website, see which being consulted on, and get involved. Have a look at the petitions committee and see what's there and get involved. Obviously, voting's important and all, and encouraging civic engagement. So register to vote and engage in your community and engage your community, meaning speak to your local people, your local friends, family, and the people you work with about important issues that affects, in this case, regional politics. Because you've got to remember the Scottish Parliament is a dissolved parliament and it's considered to be a region in the UK. It's not considered to be a country, an equal member of a union. It's considered to be a fucking region of Little England. Right? So that's the section on how important it is to participate in local democracy. And I have to say, for a long while I was. But I come out of playing in local democracy to play in the regional democracy. But if there's something comes up locally, and I think my voice can help, I do get involved. I definitely get involved, and you should too. And you've all heard me say here many, many times, check the Scottish Parliament website, have a look at consultations and petitions, and get behind whatever it is that's your interest. Okay. So that ends that section for today. So there is ways to participate in your democracy all the time. It's not just a case of every 4 or 5 years going to a ballot box and putting your tick or your cross in the box. Democracy is a living, breathing thing. And if we don't participate in it, then what we're seeing in America, what we're seeing in the East, what we're seeing in Hungary, and what we're seeing here with authoritarian rule coming in is what fucking happens. So it is very important, especially at our age when we've got a wee bit more time and a wee bit more money, to actively participate in our democracies. It is fundamentally important. I say I need to get back to paying more attention to local democracy as opposed to the regional democracy, which I've been focused on. And of course, there is the misconception and the lie of national democracy, meaning UK wide, but it's not a nation, it's a state. Always cracks me up at how they manipulate that language. Like every year, the President of America gives a State of the Nation. But it's not a fucking nation, it's a union. And this is about brainwashing people into believing they're part of a single entity rather than part of a union. The language cracks me up. Right. Moving on, Justice Secretary Angela Constance says the grooming gang a made-up story and row could have been handled better, and that there will be an inquiry into whether or not she broke the ministerial code, with their general a comment quoting Professor Alexis Jay's comments to an English inquiry. All right. Now, Angela, as we know, recently survived the vote of no confidence in the Parliament. I've got absolutely no doubt that this inquiry into whether she broke the ministerial code will just go out the fucking windy as well. It's nonsense, and I mean nonsense. But that's how low the English parties in Scotland have got to go. They are scraping below the barrel and not the bottom of it. To be fair, you know, it was a general quote. It wasn't meant to be directly as part of the debate or the substance for the debate. It was a general quote which pointed out that the same fucking stories pointed out in England, and this professor told the same inquiry in England, there isn't any need for this, go on with your jobs. So why would they hold an inquiry here? Well, anyway, of course, Professor Alexa Jay came out and said, hold on, these quotes were made to an English inquiry, but it wasn't given as a specific to Scotland. It was given as a general quote for the good professor. There you go. But let's move on. Meanwhile, down that road, Starmer's got himself, doesn't matter what he does, he has got himself tied up in knots. Stephen Bankier, your boss has decided, your best has decided to join us. Not hello, Daniela Higgins. Anyway, let's see where were we? Aye, Starmer seems to have managed to get himself caught in another controversy. How did they manage it? Over the weekend, he threw red meat to the right-wing rags by saying he intends to enforce closer relations with Europe and try and align the UK closer with Europe. Now, of course, with the UK having no influence in the world anymore, we are in a very precarious, and I say we because we're still stuck to this fucking idiot parliament down that road. We're in a very precarious position. The UK has no influence in the world. and we are subject to attack from Russia, the US, China, anybody at this point in time, actually. The UK has never been weaker. Now, it's important that we align with somebody, because this little island's not making it on its own. And we've got a choice. The mad orange man baby across in America, who's unreliable and is behaving like a fucking dictator, or we have a union of states which are still acting like grown-ups in the room. The sane answer, of course, is to align yourself with your closest neighbours and allies. Well, of course, as we know, Starmer's trying to walk the tightrope. He's trying no to lean either way. He's trying to take advantage of either way. But the UK is not in any position to take advantage of any fucker. In fact, if anything, the UK is now here to be preyed upon. And if we've just seen the way that Trump's behaved in Venezuela, and apparently he's now set his eyes on Greenland, then why not the UK? Who's coming to our defence? If Putin, Xi, or Trump decides that they're just going to take it all? Huh? Who's going to put a stop to it? The question is going to be asked, isn't it? No, Starmer, funnily enough, has come out to stand on the side of Denmark with Greenland, but you can understand that with the situation with Scotland and with Wales. And he says that only Denmark and the people of Greenland should decide their future. On the Venezuela thing and the sovereignty of the Venezuelan people, well, that's a different fucking story. Starmer's pleased that Maduro has been removed, apparently, but has been quiet on condemning how it was done. It's a clear breach of international law. The international order is breaking down, folks, and that flags up a few red flags. Because when international order breaks down, chaos ensues, and within that chaos will be violence. There will be war. At this point in time, the world's on fire in many, many places. Not just the Middle East, but in Africa, in Asia, and now in the Americas, and of course in Europe. These are no stable times. But if Starmer's going to align himself with either what was once the biggest economy in the world, the US, which is fucking ruined by Trump, or the EU, at this point in time, the safer bet's the EU. Simple as that. At this point in time, the safer bet is definitely the EU. So some sense is starting to flow into the Houses of Parliament. The downside for that Parliament down that road is the closer it gets to Europe, the easier it is for Scotland and Wales to escape. So that's another tightrope he's going to have to walk. Because, you know what they're going to say? What about the border? What about the border? What about the border? And we'll, on our side, say, well, look at the Northern Ireland arrangement, it works. But if Labour get closer to the single market, or even rejoin the single market, and their barriers disappear. They know that. We know that. It's probably one of the reasons why they're so reluctant to take that step. It'll be one of the reasons why they are so reluctant to take that step. Because it makes life easier for Scotland and Wales to escape this union. Northern Ireland, it's already got a path. I don't want to put this one up. Davy, I'm assuming that's meant to say pushing of war with Russia is to unite this broken union under the Union Jack, rally around the flag effect. This is their plan. Yeah, Chris, that's viable. Although at this point in time, I don't think there's any fucking intelligence enough to pull something like half down that road. I really don't. And that includes in both houses. But, I see, Starmer, he's not got his trouble to sleep. Now on to Trump and his illegal invasion of Venezuela and his kidnapping of its president and his wife. Now, Maduro might have been a dictator. I can't say a no, to be honest. We just spoke about local politics and regional politics. And then statewide politics. I'm not going to use the term national. Statewide politics. That's a big enough playing field for me to play in. Am I aware of other things that go on in the world? Of course I am. We all are. We'll have a look at the world event section and our preferred streaming systems or newspapers. But am I that aware of the internal machinations of Venezuelan politics? No, I'm not. What I do know is that Trump was looking for a headline. He's looking to get the eyes of the people off his internal mess. And as David and I were talking about the other day there when he phoned me up about this, I said, David, you know how it goes. Politicians that are failing at home tend to try and shine the spotlight on outside to take their citizens' minds off the problems at home. And that's what Trump's doing. On the other hand, of course, on the other side, you get Putin, who is actually an imperialist with imperial ambitions. Has Trump got imperial ambitions? I don't know. What do you think, Charlie Cat? Charlie Cat says yes. And we know that because he's been trying to increase the size of America since he came to power. First he tried it on with Canada, then he tried it on it with Mexico, then he turned his sights on Greenland, and then Venezuela. Trump is an expansionist. He wants to get to play in the same playing field as Putin. That's his hero. Or that's the guy that's got enough information on Trump to fucking sink him. Because it appears that the Epstein thing isn't sinking him. But hey, Trump is a threat, by the way. He's a threat to the UK. And the UK is vulnerable. In fact, at this point in time, everybody's a threat to the UK. Absolutely everybody. The UK is bankrupt. It is weak. It has no direction. And it has no political leadership. As a state, the UK is vulnerable. And as a state, the UK is finished. Have I seen what southern Yemen is doing? No, I haven't. As I say, I'll have a look into it though. Thanks very much for your super chat, Glasgow Kiss. It's nice to see you on the feed, mate. No, I haven't had a look at what southern Yemen's doing, but I will have a look. Now, as we move on to the last story, this one's really interesting because it goes back to democracy and how we run our democracy. And that is to tell you folks that barristers in Northern Ireland, the UK's third legal jurisdiction, because remember, there's Irish law, Scots law, and English and Welsh law operate within the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Barristers in Northern Ireland have decided to go on strike indefinitely, crippling the justice system in Northern Ireland. And no doubt there'll be a kickback on the justice system right across these islands. Now, what are they on strike for? Apparently, legal aid fees in the region, in the province, and probably right across these islands, have not increased in 20 years. And that will sort of explain why the legal system is failing. Failing to keep up, failing to modernise, failing to keep ahead of the amount of cases on the books. That's because apparently solicitors, barristers, advocates are all avoiding legal aid work. It's no worth it. It's just not worth it. They're only taking cases with the junior lawyers who are being forced to take them on. Mere senior barristers and things like that just saying, fuck, I don't want to work. Doesn't pay me. I make more with private clientele. I break even on legal aid. What's the fucking point in that? You can't make a living out of breaking even. You're breaking even. That means that your outlay is only just covering your costs. You're breaking even. Who's going to work for that? I'm no. I've got to have enough to cover my living costs and I'll at least have enough left to give me a lifestyle. Sure, barristers and solicitors are no different to me. No different to you. But that's just another example of institutional failure from central government in Westminster and regional government. Obviously, regional governments don't have the money if Westminster doesn't supply it. That's how it works. The Treasury takes all our money and decides how much we get back. And basically that decides then how much we can spend on each of the disciplines within our own responsibilities, including the judiciary. Mental. So the legal system in Northern Ireland is broken down. Fertig. Finito. This ought to be fun. We'll see what happens. We'll see how they deal with it. Will they deal with it like civilised human beings and turn on Westminster? Or will they turn on each other as usual? That remains to be seen. Right, folks. That's it for the date. See, I'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30. Don't be late, you'll be on the naughty step back here. And I'll see you all then. Stay safe. If you're in the northeast, the Central Highlands, the Western Highlands, Orkney, Shetland, Western Isles, only travel if you need to. Only travel if you need to. All right. No look after each other. Thanks for super chats. Thanks for mods for moderating. We'll be back to see what nonsense is in the papers tomorrow. and I'll see you in the afternoon on Thursday. Bye for now.